Okay. So Martha, so today, just before I bring in Martha, today we're going to be talking about our public light campaign, which is a public light campaign that was pushed forward by members of Colonias and LUPE members that saw the injustices that were happening when it came to their ability to have access to public light in their neighborhoods. They also had problems with drainage and paved streets. So for those of you who don't know what a colonia is, a colonia is a term that was coined here in South Texas, but I'm sure there's different kinds of colonias all over the world, if not the United States, or all over the United States, if not the world. And usually these are places that are rural, that often are just sold as lots at a cheap price, and usually given to people who are struggling, so they have to buy into this way because they're trying to own a home, of course, because everybody wants to own a home or deserves to own a home. So Colonias came about from the need for the community here to be able to own a home. A lot of immigrants or migrants were moving into this area. So they were needing to buy homes or lots, and a lot of times these lots were bought in rural places. They were often old fields or that didn't have access to paved roads or street lights or drainage. And a lot of the times these families grew up or continued to, right now I believe that the Rio Grande Valley and all the way through Laredo and El Paso is the largest concentrations of colonias, which are neighborhoods that sometimes didn't have the best infrastructure. Things have changed because of the organizing that we've done here at LUPE with our members. Now in the county of Hidalgo, any new subdivision has to have paved streets, has to have drainage plan for 20 years. They have to have street lights, and that's all because of the organizing done by our members and pushing our county officials to make sure that anybody who buys a lot or who moves in has all the necessities that they require to live, a proper life. So before I move forward, I'd like to invite Martha.
Ready?
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm just retired from La Unión del Pueblo Entero from LUPE. This is my first year of retirement, but before that, I was working as the director of the department. I started as an organizer. And in 2006, I started to work with La Unión del Pueblo Entero. And one of the biggest campaigns that we had in the years that I had worked at LUPE, it was the light campaign. In 2005, before I came in, the year before I started, Veronica Gonzalez, our state representative, introduced a law to bring light to colonias, but it was not really a strong legislation. And when I started in 2006, I started to put it in implementation. We find out that the law was very weak and really did not make the county act it out and start putting lights in the colonia. So after that legislation had passed, we started organizing, not because we wanted to, I always say that not because we wanted to, but because it was a need in the communities. The colonias were very unsafe, being super pitch black. The children, when they were waiting for the bus, there was accidents happening. There were a lot of vandalism just by the darkness of this, because some of these colonias can be 54 lots to 300 lots in one colonia. So they vary in sizes, and the biggest the colonia, the biggest social problems that the colonia have, especially when they lack public light. So it was a big issue. And as I said, we started to organize and push really, really hard to really create a law that it could really be implemented and could make the county responsible for public land.
Yeah, that was a big issue, right? The county said they were not responsible.
Yeah, I remember the very first time, right after that law was passed, we went to visit the judge, and some of the commissioners were there, and we wanted to ask them, I mean, we have a law, and now it's time to start implementing it. And I remember very clearly the judge telling us that when pigs fly, we're going to get that done, because that law was weak, and there was nobody that didn't make anybody responsible, and that was just not a good law. And so really he told us that plain and simple that it was not going to happen. I think that one of the things that that really makes us think about that is that we needed to get a lot of the colonias that we organized engaged in this fight. And I think that it was always the people pushing us, pushing the organization, pushing LUPE to really create this huge campaign that that really helped us to not only at the end to pass a second law that was a stronger, but also develop leadership, that was a big thing to develop the leaders so they can become a strong advocates of their issues and really get to know the issue or what was the solution, not only the problem, but how can we present solutions to the county and start working on solutions. So that was the big push for this campaign, that finding allies in different organizations, nonprofits, but also in other agencies. And so that was a really what we developed from this big campaign is just the leadership development. As I mentioned, my two inspirations were born with that campaign. Norma Aldape and a lot of other leaders really become really strong leaders with the development of this campaign.
Yeah. Before we move forward, I want to share that this picture here was part of the visuals. On the left, you see a colonia that's completely in the dark, and on the right, you see what a regular city neighborhood looks like with the public light, and you can see the streets, you can see the mailboxes, and you can see the differences of how they were left in the dark, right? And this is how dark it is when the kids are waiting for the buses in the morning or after school when they're trying to play. Can you talk about why they called it the Right to Light campaign?
Well, I think because when we had these meetings with as probably some of you know, that the way that we organize at LUPE, we inherited this model from the United Farm Workers, which is house meeting model. We always include our decisions are made by the people who need the changes. And so they, after talking to them and having all these meetings with the community, they feel that they had the right to have lights. I mean, they're paying citizens, they buy the lots, they pay taxes, they're active members of the community, and their right to have a light was not going to be something that the commissioners, it was a handout, but it was a right that the community had as a basic right for living in this country, just like the cities have public lights. Why the people in the rural communities were going to be left out. And I think that was something that the people really felt that power, the need to have this, to be treated with dignity and respect. And so they came out with this name of the campaign, the right, and then because they were feeling that there was a right. It wasn't really a luxury that they were asking for it. It was really a right to be able to have to live with more dignity, for the children to be safe as they're waiting for the bus, for them to have more activity in the community, and for them to also to be safer from vandalism and things that happen when the colonias were super dark. And I remember people telling me that they just feel like they live in a third world country when that they came from Mexico or they came from other countries to live in the United States to live in a more dignified life, but they feel when they feel in the dark, they just didn't feel that dignity. So it was the right, it was feeling that they had the right to have lights. And so I think that that was the name that they feel that they need to give to this campaign.
It's beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about like the first victory? And I'll show the pictures here, the solar light victories and what that meant.
In 2012, after all the pressure that we've been putting in the county, they wanted to appease us. They wanted to respond to the community. One of the steps that we did by pressure the counties to respond to the community, it was go to the commissioners courts every Tuesday. We'll present and the community and the members learn how to speak in the community and how to speak or the different problems that they encounter by being in the dark. And so the precinct 3 Commissioner Joe Flores responded by looking for a grant and providing solar lights to I think it was like 8 colonias. 8 colonias were going to be lighted, and they were going to put these solar lights, and we were going to be happy because they responded in that way to the community. The problem was that one was that it was super expensive, and they did not follow up with money and budget to maintain these lights. So after a couple of years, and they really, the technology was not super strong, so they needed like a double the amount of public light of solar lights to be able to light what one regular light will light up. So the community pretty soon they start learning all these issues that these lights were going to cause, and so we really continue to push stronger for another kind of a solution. And they were not, I mean, they didn't quiet people down just by giving 8 colonias solar lights, you know. And I think that the commissioners learned that was not going to be enough for the community that they were asking for a solution. So I think that was good at the time. It was free money. It was free money that they got from federal grant, but it was definitely did not satisfy the need of the communities.
Yeah. And you mentioned how important it was for them to feel empowered, right? These leaders to feel like they can make a difference, and how important it was for them to be part of the decision-making process by showing up to these public meetings, the county commissioners meeting, and making sure they spoke up. Can you tell me why it was important that it was a group of leaders and not just one person that was showing up?
Yes, usually it's easy to work with just one person, and you usually find one person, they like to shine, and there's going to be the spokesperson. But for us, it was important that the community learn how to work together as a group of people, because decisions had to be made, decisions about what the community want, about the community want need to pay for these public lights, that we need to pick up signatures from Colonias. It was going to be a lot of work just to put that burden in one person. So we always, as I said, when inheriting the model from the United Farm Workers, we always work in committees. And it has to be a group of leaders from the same community that really carry the responsibility and share responsibilities of what it needed to be done. So that was so important, because it was a lot of decisions had to be made, and it was much better when a group of people from the same community made the decision instead of just one person make the decision and about the whole community. So it was important that we take everybody along. I think it's easy to make decisions with one person, but it's harder to carry everybody along. But it's much more effective in creating leadership and making decisions, and that way nobody blames anybody, but the decisions are made in consensus, and they work much beautiful. And also we're able to really develop a lot of leadership.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that you talk about a lot is developing leaders and how they still inspire you today. When I was talking to you about this, you mentioned Lupita Pruneda and an experience you had with her after Commissioner Court. I think she's here in this picture.
Yeah, she's right in the middle. And Lupita Pruneda, she's already passed away. But I remember the day that they start going to Commissioner's Court. Even going to Commissioner's Court was a development of leadership, because they were not used to be in front of the commissioners. They were not, and think that the commissioner meetings was, and they were in English. And most of these people that we took, I mean, it was, they spoke only Spanish. So we had to be translating it. Later on, we had to get into a fight of the commissioners providing translation for them. And we won it. Eventually, we won that fight too. But the reality is that these people already feel bad because they don't understand what they're talking about. It was a way to work the translation with them, quietly over here telling them what they're talking about and all that. But I remember the specific day that we had this commissioner, Joe Flores, in Precinct 3. He never wanted to talk to the committee. I mean, he never wanted to talk to the community. Never. That was not part of his. Nobody asked him to go in meetings, and even when they asked him, he just never went to any meetings. He did not like to mingle with the community. And I remember that this Colonia, Linda Vista, it was a colonia that was asking for public lights and drainage in the colonia. And the commissioner put him down by saying, you should not be asking for anything. You have a Cadillac colonia. Some of these people have a really Chevrolet colonia, which means that they have like a little poor colonias, and their colonia was a Cadillac colonia. And so people were really feeling bad about what the commissioner saw. So they didn't have that much faith on themselves, and they didn't have much faith in the commissioner. But I remember this day particular when we continued to go in, and this particular day, they were asking to have a meeting with the commissioner, and they wanted the commissioner to really listen to them one-to-one, and so invite them to this meeting. And so after everybody spoke one by one, the commissioner changed his mind, and he sent his somebody from his staff and tell him to, I'm going to meet with them to stop telling me, harassing me, and here in the commissioner's court, I am going to meet with them. And I remember the ladies coming out of the commissioner's court and making a little circle in that side and really evaluating the meeting. And I remember Lupita Pruneda putting his hands in his waist and saying, you know what? We really have power. We really are power people. The commissioners actually agreed to meet with us. And so that means that we are really, and so I felt that they're little things like that, they built the power, and they believe on their own power. And I really think that that's one of the things that I always remember, that little things builds people up. Just like little things tear people down, little things like that builds people up, and people begin to feel their own power. And I think that was really what this campaign did. The whole thing is about how do you rebuild people and believe in themselves, and how they believe and fighting for what they need, and really celebrating that. And I think that that's one of the things that it taught me that day, that about how these people, the people begin to feel believe in themselves.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy. There was multiple laws that had to be passed. I know even you and some of the LUPE staff were part of even writing the actual program. Here I'm sharing some of the pictures of the petition, the Right to Light petition, that we shared to show the faces and the families that were being affected by this, right? It's important that we shared their story.
Yeah, no, we actually fought for public light since 2000 and probably 2004, 2005 was the first law, all the way up to 2000, only up to the last 2 years, and when we actually made the county really implementing a law and creating a process for people to apply, even online, apply for a colonia to be light up. So it was a long process. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of meetings. But I think the most important thing that it was is that people was part of this or the process. People were part of the developing the process on how this was going to be done. Everything was checked with leaders, and nothing was done by staff only. I think that was the biggest thing that we did in this one, is that all the decisions were going to be made by the people affected by this problem, and it was never a decision that we were going to do by ourselves, but it was always a roundtable discussion with leaders. And I think at the end, what I really think is that even the other commissioners beginning to look at these people as people who are worthy, people who has power. Because I think that in the beginning, when we started this campaign, they really did not believe in the people that live in the colonias. They really did not value these people just because they're poor, just a lot of them are undocumented. They just see them as a burden. But at the end, I think that they're beginning to see these people as an asset to this country, and also as a human beings, they have dignity. And I think that was the biggest shift. And even the commissioners, some of the commissioners now, I mean, they're beginning to want to serve the people, something that they never really, that was not the language that they used, and not the attitude that they had before. But all these years of struggle, all the years of persistence, all these years of these people really being, and they're very persistent and being engaged, they really convinced the commissioners about the dignity that they have. And so I think that is what we learned with this campaign, this huge campaign that really helps us to even LUPE used to how to develop campaigns, how to maintain, how to celebrate, and how to really engage people. I think that was a lesson for the leaders as well as for all of us, the team of organizers.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I wasn't around for most of it. I got here after, but even now I see new commissioners come in, and they already know that they're going to talk to Colonia members and community members, and they're going to be part of the decision process when it comes to Colonia cleanups. This year, I think they're lighting up more Colonias than they've ever lit up before. So they're really listening to the people, and it's beautiful to see all the hard work that y'all have done. I do want to ask, can you tell us about some of the changes that you saw in like the first colonias that were lit up?
Yeah, one of the I want to say that even when they put the solar lights in the very first colonia, El Flaco, even the sheriff saw the difference of the quality of life that the people begin to have, because the crime, little pattern like vandalism and things diminish. He was one of the advocates for us to push for more public light, for more public light, because he saw the change on how a community that has this kind of infrastructure can be a safer community. But one of the ones that I was most proud that I remember is when the very first colonia, Mi Sueño, which is a dream, that's what it translates to, Mi Sueño. It was a colonia that there was the very first one that started, they had the regular lights, the regular infrastructure with regular lights. I remember that the whole community was celebrating, but one of the changes that happens in that colonia was that for colonias, there is, I think we did the study that for every, I don't know, maybe every 500 colonias, there's one park or something like that. With the city of McAllen, every 5 miles radius, they have parks. And the colonias, parks are very, very scarce. They're very far, far away. That really don't have places where people, the children can play and develop healthy. So I remember the Mi Sueño, one of the greatest things that we saw in that colonia is that the members begin to, the members of the colonia begin to form teams of soccer. Moms were against the children, and they used one of the empty lots to get tournaments. And so even the commissioner was very happily surprised that there was going to be more activity, physical activity for the children. And also it was going to be more bonding for parents to bond with the children if they were playing soccer and soccer teams. And I think that is the little changes that sometimes happen in colonias when we try to change, get infrastructure going. There's also benefits for the health and benefits for communities to be more, families to be more united. So that was that Colonia. That's the kind of change that the commissioners, and that helps them to really solidify the importance that it was for them to invest in this infrastructure and more colonias, because I mean we have over 1,000 colonias that needed to be light. And so I mean that was a huge endeavor. But I think when they're beginning to see all these changes, positive changes of people, then they're beginning to realize that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. There's still many colonias that still need to be lit up. And luckily, thanks to all the work that you and the leaders have done, any new subdivision now has to have public light, and has to have proper drainage. And families will no longer have to deal with these when it comes to new colonias, but there's so many colonias that still need a lot of these public utilities. You mentioned it about how these people felt dignity and they felt power, and you've called this an empowerment campaign. Why do you call it an empowerment campaign?
Well, for the leaders to be able to sit down with commissioners and sit down with representatives, the state representatives that drafted the law. I mean, we have to have members really well knowledgeable of all the steps that it was going to require. And also, they have to we have to develop a system, really, and develop a system on how it was going to work, how the application was going to work, how that, so you had to go to almost like I would say like a university courses on how infrastructure works, right? And what it's going to take. And we actually had to educate our public officials. And so it took for the people to get educated together with us, right? We get educated. We look for professional people that can help us to get educated on issues, educated on what it's going to take. And then we studied budgets. I mean, we study everything that we need to be knowledgeable on. So we'll be able to be an authority on the issue and being able to really speak with authority to the commissioners, and they begin to change their minds about who are they dealing with. And so that was a really great thing is that we created, the community, I mean, different organizations created this curriculum. It's called LUCHA, which is, that was this curriculum about how to become, how the University for the People of the Colonias had to become knowledgeable on the issues that they affect their lives, like drainage, like, streets, budgets, government, how the government works, in all these issues that it was important for community to really know. They knew how to affect them, but I mean, a lot of them they didn't know the budget of the county, and that's things that they had to study. So know exactly how the county divided the money that they get from the taxes. And so that was part of the development of the leaders, that they have to go through all these very extensive curriculum and learn how to be a great leader and knowledgeable leader on the issues that affect them, the community. They knew more than some of the commissioners, for sure.
Yeah, I recently found some of those trainings, the Lucha trainings, and for anybody who's on here, I can email them to you. They have them both in English and Spanish. And like Martha said, it's just amazing. It's like a crash course on government, and specifically local government, and just how everything works and how we can be part of the process. I know it's already getting kind of late. So before we go, We'll open it up for questions in a little bit, but I'd like to ask, what would you tell someone that feels that they can't make a difference and that things are always going to be the same?
Well, I think that I always say that if you want to organize, you have to have believe in people. And I think that by just by listening to all the introductions, all the people that we have in this meeting really believe in people. You have to believe in the dignity of people, and that sometimes they just don't. They need the opportunity. I always say that they just need the opportunity to really develop some of the skills that maybe they didn't have the opportunity to gain in their own home countries or in their own upbringing. So you have to believe in people. You have to bring people along. Uh, People who has the problems should be part of the solutions. I don't think that we can be the white knight that comes and try to solve the issues of poor people. I think that we are much more effective when we make them be the leaders and we the followers, the people that try to help them be the followers and not the solution, and not the ones who to bring the solutions to their lives. Because I always to say the organizers, they are live in this problem every single day, so they can teach us how to live in problems. So we're gonna have to help them to figure it out, the ins and outs of how the problem can be solved. But in reality, they have a lot of knowledge, and we have to be open to that. I think to me, that is the number one thing that I learned as an organizer and working with people in the colonias, is that we always have to go with the attitude that they have a lot. We can learn a lot from the people who has the problems, and we should never assume that just because they're poor. I always say the organizers, just because you're poor doesn't mean you're dumb. So just because you're poor doesn't mean that you don't know. Sometimes they can teach us a lot, and I think that that's the attitude. Learn, believe in people, believe that they can help, be part of the solution, and be patient, and celebrate little victories, so you can have the energy to go for the long haul.
Thank you, Marta. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now and then open it up for questions.